And what made you come to this vision of leadership as being one of humble sharing of resources and humble sharing of creativity rather than the star system? What were the inspirations for that?
So the first thing is that it worked in the work that I did. And so the transformational point really was the program where I was heading the health program in UNICEF India. And at that time, the immunization coverage in India was 30%. And the two countries that have the most babies in the world are China and India, right? So India used to produce 25 million babies, even more than China. We produce more movies and babies than anyone else. And I remember Mr. James Grant coming over to India and saying, Monica, if India and China don't make it, then the world will not make it. Because we produce 40% of the babies, I think, in the world. And I've just been to China and spoken to the Prime Minister, and they said they'll make it happen, and they will, because they are, you know, shall we say, that there's a lot of structure and systems put in place in China, and once they decide on top, it'll happen. He says, I've also gone to the Prime Minister here, and he said, it'll happen, but you're a democracy. So people will say what they want to say and do what they want to do, and so it's hard, so what you going to do? So I created 3 alternative plans. One that would take us in 3 years from 30 to 60, and one from 30 to 75, and one from 30 to 80. And he said, that's the one you go for. But in that one, I mobilized, you know, the plan was to mobilize the 500 people in our office to go and serve, from the accounts to everybody else. And we created a strategy where we engage people differently. And there were many people who supported this movement. So at the end of it, Daniel Goleman and Annie McKee interviewed me and wrote about me in a book called Primal Leadership, and said that I'm a leader. So I said, oh, I'm a leader. So let me study leadership. And so I could see what I did it was actually, you know, manifest the principles of leadership. And that for me, shared leadership was the way to go, because everybody else took the credit for the work that was done, and that's how I wanted it. So it was great. Everyone wrote articles, they wrote a whole lot of things, so it was wonderful.
So you discovered it by actually putting it into practice.
Yes.
Which is how you've done all of this, isn't it?
No, then I got more systematic.
Yes.
Then I looked at what was missing in the strategies that I worked with.
Yes.
And so I've had 5 iterations and tested a lot of these approaches, tools, and modified them to see what works and what actually generated results, and measured it. So that's why when people say, well, you've got to prove it works, I said, I really don't need to prove it works, because there's evidence it works.
Yes.
And the evidence is not done by me, it's by people. And they say it works, so it's fine, you know. There would be about 5,000 people who would say it works, you know.
That's a wonderful thing to feel and know, isn't it?
Yes.
I'd like to, in conclusion, just ask you really 2 questions. First is a personal question. What is your practice? How do you keep this sourcing of yourself from sacred energy and truth alive?
So I think I work on 2 parallel tracks for myself. It's quite simple. So I don't consider myself to be a guru or a teacher. I'm a practitioner first and foremost, right? So I'm a practitioner. So I want to see what can I do. So first is I engage in spiritual practice. I meditate. I've had a Tibetan Buddhist monk, Sokni Rinpoche, with whom I've studied, and you know, it's been wonderful, and his brother as well. I also practice, you know, I've practiced Vipassana, which is hard for me, but I find that very, very stilling, and allows me to discover
to witness consciousness.
Yes, in a way that's beautiful. So currently I am practicing Vipassana. So I have a spiritual path which is not religious, so I don't do any prayers at home, but I can worship in any space, temple, mosque, you know, church, but just like submission, not like a prayer. So I have a spiritual practice that's regular. I read a lot to understand I love the work in, like, I went to Matri Mandir, it was so beautiful.
The Matri Mandir in Oroville. Oh, it's so
It
extraordinary.
is grace itself.
Yes.
You can feel divine
The power,
presence.
yeah.
Yes,
And
yes.
that great crystal in the middle of the space. It was an amazing place.
Then I realized I have a lot of hang-ups, like we all do. So I make it a point to work on my
Shadow,
my limits, my shadow.
The story you're telling yourself.
The story, my interpretation. So, I've done a host of practices. And I will engage in one thing every year. I must have done some 25 of them and different courses, and to lighten my load. And so that's how I walk a little lighter in life. And then that's the two practices, Andrew. But then there are two, you've used the word fuel many times. And I would use the word maybe the same word, but so what's it that actually has me going?
Yes.
Is I don't need to make any effort. I just feel pain of others. And my mother said I felt that even when I was a child.
Yes.
So if a horse was hit, I was 3 years old, I would cry and push the cart to go up the hill. So it's just been part of me. In my medical practice, it's been the same.
You have to respond to suffering.
Yeah, I just need to. They say in the East, you're a scholar, you know all those pathways. And they say that some of us need to serve, right? Some of us are bhakti yogis, some of us are gyan yogis. Well, I'm a karma yogi. I need to serve to feel whole. And so for me, it's just that. So that's the personal question answer. What was the second question?
The second question is, it's quite clear we're in very extreme circumstances at the moment. The world is in immense danger. Do you think we are waking up fast enough? Do you think there is real hope? Because we can talk and talk, we can point to wonderful examples, we can have amazingly rich models. But the fact is that the systems in place are vicious and unbelievably destructive. We are destroying the environment, we're polluting the seas. It seems almost impossible to shift these systems from where many people are standing at this moment. What's your real feeling at this time in your life, with all of your experience, about where we are in the world and what's possible now?
This is how I hold it, Andrew. When many people have asked me, do you really think you're making a difference? And I said, there is a way in which I look at life. If I felt I was not making a difference, I would rather really go and dance on the beach. So, why should I engage at all?
Right.
So I believe.
I'd like to see you dancing on the beach, Monica, and I'll dance with you. Anytime you decide to do it, please invite me.
Okay. And I believe that not just I'm making a difference, that the effort people are making will shift the trajectory of the world. And I use the word belief.
Yes.
Because that's what I would just like to believe and not argue.
Yes.
Because I don't have an argument, I don't have statistics, not data to say that human beings are wise enough to turn the trajectory of the planet the way it's going. I know we've come to a point of no return for climate change, for species destruction, 100 species gone a day. So for me, it is a knowing that we have a greatness, that I know. Whether we'll be able to tap into that to transform the world requires us to change the system. Will we all have the courage to do that? I don't know. Will we be able to really act towards that? I don't know. But this I know is that I'm not going to stop, like you won't stop.